when I graduated from Harvard Graduate School, half of my colleagues were women who were getting their degrees. But if you looked at the major faculties around the United States of scientists and immunology and other things, the representation of women, especially at sort of the professor level, was very low. In fact, I think at UCSD it was about 10% when I went. So, and science was, most of the big labs were run by men, and it was a hard thing for a woman to forge her way in and be treated equally and become a scientist. So I thought that was, and I have to say that at Trudeau, not only did we have a woman director, but half our faculty were women. When we had seminars, half the seminar speakers were women. I suspect that may be unique.
And
I think if you looked at, and deliberate, although not necessarily stridently mentioned, it just happened because there were excellent women doing excellent science.
Was the AAI itself sort of a men's club at that time?
That's a good question. I think not as much as some things, not as much. And certainly by the time I was elected council member, there were a number of women, and I think it's become highly influenced by women.
And is that due
it's
to
very equal influence?
Is that due at all to some of the activities of the Committee on Women?
Certainly, partly. They worked very hard to make a list of speakers to try to especially promote visibility of women scientists, and they still work at that.
At what levels and what places?
Well, I think they have a list of seminar speakers, so if people are looking for women. So I think the climate has changed quite a lot, and people often are looking for women speakers, and so this helps facilitate that. But it hasn't changed totally yet. It's still not quite. It's not an even playing field, but it's getting there. It's way better than it was when I started out in science.
So, do you recall
way
any
less discrimination?
Do you recall some stratagems that the Committee on Women used over the years? Or not?
I think mostly they just lobbied within the things that the AAI had some control over. For instance, committees that the AAI promotes, editorial functions of the AAI. Actually, the Journal of Immunology is going to have its first woman editor. She was just chosen. Pamela Fink, a friend and colleague of mine. So, over the years, this kind of attention to making sure that there were women represented at every level has made a huge difference.
Have you had occasions in your own career where you really bumped against the glass ceiling?
Sure. I don't really, it's not something you particularly want to talk about, because obviously you can only do so by, specifically by inciting those who impose the ceiling on you. But certainly, many times, and I think every woman in science has had those. Just lack of appreciation by some of your male colleagues that you could be a good scientist. Just sort of an assumption that you were limited by the fact that you were a woman. And many times.
Have you developed particular strategies to combat that?
There's not too much you can do except just do as good a job as possible. and sometimes a little prodding.